The hospital corridor was a blur of white coats and panicked shouts as the code blue alarm shrieked through the air. Nurses sprinted toward room 714, their sneakers squeaking against the linoleum, while a crash cart rattled behind them like a war drum. Inside, 8-year-old Sophie Carter lay motionless, her tiny chest heaving erratically beneath a tangle of wires and tubes. Her mother, Rachel, stood frozen in the corner, hands pressed to her mouth, eyes wide with terror as the medical team swarmed her daughter. She was fine 10 minutes ago. Rachel's voice cracked, barely audible over the chaos. She was talking to Mesh, was laughing. Dr. Marcus Hensley, the hospital's steely chief of pediatric medicine, barked orders with the precision of a battlefield general. Push AP now. Give me a chest X-ray stat. His hands moved swiftly, checking Sophie's pulse, his face a mask of controlled fury. The monitors wailed in protest, her oxygen saturation plummeting to a dangerous 79 fan tram. No one noticed the soft click of nails against the floor or the golden retriever slipping through the doorway, his blue therapy vest glinting under the fluorescent lights. No one. That is until he let out a sharp, piercing barca sound that cut through the clamor like a gunshot. All eyes turned to the dog. His handler, Julia Bennett, stood just behind him, her face pale with shock. "Max, heel," she commanded, her voice firm but trembling. The retriever ignored her, his gaze locked on Sophie, his body rigid as he barked again, louder this time, his nose twitching toward the left side of her chest. Dr. Hensley spun around, his expression darkening. "What the hell is that animal doing in my ER? Get it out now." Julia grabbed Max's leash, tugging gently, but he planted his paws, refusing to budge. "I'm sorry, doctor's never done this before. He's a therapy dog, he's trained. I don't care if he's trained to perform surgery." Hensley snapped, his voice dripping with venom. "This is a sterile environment, and that child is crashing." "Security." As a guard stepped forward, Rachel's voice broke through the tension. "Wait, he's not hurting her. Look at him. He's trying to tell us something." Max barked again, a third time, his focus unwavering, his snout inches from Sophie's left side. Julia's heart pounded as a memory flashed through her mind. A documentary she'd watched years ago about dogs detecting cancer, seizures, even infections, with a precision humans couldn't match. Could Max sense something they'd missed? The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the beep of Sophie's faltering monitors. Dr. Hensley glared at Julia, then at Max, his jaw tight. "This isn't a circus. Remove the dog, or I'll have you both banned from this hospital." But as security dragged Julia and Max toward the door, Sophie's mother lunged forward, grabbing Hensley's arm. "Please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "She's been sick for weeks, and nothing's working. What if he's right? What if he knows something?" Hensley shook her off, but his eyes flickered to Sophie, then to the dog, and for a fleeting moment, doubt shadowed his certainty. "Fine," he growled. "Give me a high-res CT and a fungal panel on her left lung. But if this is a waste of time, MS. Bennett, you're done here." The crisp October wind swept through the parking lot of St. Jude's Children's Hospital as Julia guided Max toward the entrance 2 days earlier. The golden retriever's tail wagged lazily, his demeanor calm yet regal, as if he knew the weight of his role. At 5 years old, Max was a veteran therapy dog, his presence a balm to the sick children who awaited him each week. Julia, a former graphic designer turned full-time handler, adjusted his vest, her fingers brushing the embroidered words, "Healing Paws." She'd left her old life behind after her nephew's leukemia battle, when a therapy dog named Daisy had coaxed him out of a months-long silence. That moment had changed her forever, and Max, with his uncanny intuition, had become her partner in a mission she hadn't planned but couldn't abandon. Inside, the lobby buzzed with quiet efficiency. "Morning, Julia," called Linda, the receptionist, her face lighting up at the sight of Max. "They're waiting for you on the 7th floor. New patient today, Sophie Carter, room 714. Pneumonia. Poor kid. Not responding to meds, as they'd hoped. Julia nodded, clipping her badge to her jacket. Anyone cancel? Nope, full rounds today. Sophie's a last-minute ad. Parents asked for the therapy program specifically. The elevator dinged, and as the doors slid open, Dr. Marcus Hensley stepped out. His tall frame loomed, his white coat pristine, his expression souring the moment he spotted Max. "MS. Bennett," he said, his tone icy. "I see the pet parade continues despite my repeated objections." Julia forced a smile, though her stomach tightened. "Good morning, Dr. Hensley. The therapy program's been proven to boost recovery rates and morale. Max is a certified asset. Certified or not, he's a walking biohazard," Hensley retorted, stepping aside to avoid Max's wagging tail. "These kids are immunocompromised. I've told the bored animals have no place in a hospital, especially not near my critical cases, like room 714. Max is bathed with medical-grade antiseptic before every VY sit," Julia said evenly, her rehearsed defense rolling off her tongue. "The protocols were vetted by infectious disease experts." Hensley's lips pressed into a thin line. "Protocols don't eliminate risk. Keep him away from Sophie Carter. That's an order." Before Julia could reply, he strode off, his coat billowing like a storm cloud. "Well, Max," she muttered, stepping into the elevator, "looks like we've got our marching orders and a new patient who's off limits." Max tilted his head, his warm brown eyes meeting hers with a knowing glint, as if he'd already decided otherwise. Julia hadn't always believed in the extraordinary. 6 years ago, she'd been sketching logos in a high-rise office, chasing deadlines and promotions. Then came the call. Her nephew, Ethan, had been airlifted to St. Jude's after a brutal infection following his chemo. For weeks, he'd stared blankly at the ceiling, a shell of the boy who'd once raced her to the mailbox. Then Daisy Araveta's scruffy terrier with a lopsided grin, and Ethan's face lit up for the first time in months. He'd whispered to the dog, laughed when she licked his hand, and later that day, spoke his first full sentence to his doctor. Julia quit her job the next week, adopted Max from a breeder known for temperament, and poured her SAVY-NGS into his training. 18 months later, he'd graduated top of his class, his evaluator scribbling unmatched intuition perfect for pediatrics on his certificate. Most of St. Jude staff adored Max. Nurses swore kids needed less pain medication on his VY sit days. Therapists marveled at how he coaxed reluctant patients into exercises. But Hensley was the outlier, a brilliant physician obsessed with sterility and data, his career built on eradicating hospital-acquired infections. Julia had Googled him once. Articles praised his uncompromising rigor, but whispered rumors among the staff painted him as a man who'd rather save a statistic than a smile. On the 7th floor, Nurse Clara Ortiz greeted them with a grin. "Thank God you're here. Rough day up here, Max, is just what we need. Hensley told me to steer clear of room 714, Julia said, hesitating. Clara's brow furrowed. "That's weird." Sophie's parents begged for a therapy VY sit. "She's Dr. Patel's patient, not Hensley's. He's just consulting on respiratory cases." She lowered her voice. "Between you and me, he's a genius, but he'd rather stare at a microscope than talk to a kid. If the parents requested it and Patel's okay with it, I'll go," Julia decided. "Hensley's not here today, right?" "Nope. Round downstairs." "You're clear." Room 714 was dim, the blinds half drawn, the air thick with the hum of machines. Sophie lay propped on pillows, her blonde hair limp against her pale skin, an oxygen mask fogging with each shallow breath. Rachel dozed in a chair, one hand resting near her daughter's. Julia knocked softly. "Hi, I'm Julia with the therapy program. This is Max." Rachel jolted awake, blinking. "Oh, hi, Yuri here. They said you might come." Her voice was hoarse, strained. "Is now okay?" "Perfect timing," Julia said. Sophie's eyes fluttered open, glassy with fever, but a faint smile curved her lips when she saw Max. "Is he mine?" she rasped, her voice a whisper. "This is Max," Julia said, guiding him closer. He's here to VY sick kids and make them feel better. Sophie reached out, her hand trembling, and Max lowered his head, letting her fingers sink into his fur. He's so soft, she murmured. Can he come closer? Julia spread a sterile sheet across the bed's edge. Max up. He placed his front paws delicately on the sheet, keeping most of his weight on the floor, his head within Sophie's reach. For 20 minutes, she stroked his ears, giggled faintly when he nudged a toy with his nose, and even managed a weak high five. Rachel watched, tears brimming. She hasn't smiled like that in days, she said. But as Julia prepared to leave Max, thank you, he froze. His body tensed, his nose twitching towards Sophie's left chest, his eyes narrowing with focus. Max, Julia repeated, sharper now. He didn't move, shifting closer instead, his posture stiffening into what she recognized as an alert, something he'd never been trained for. Is he okay? Rachel asked, her voice tight. He's focused on her, Julia said, fumbling for an explanation. He's never done this before. Then, breaking every rule, Max laid his head gently on the bed beside Sophie's left side, his gaze unyielding. The door swung open. What is that dog doing on my patient? Hensley's voice boomed, his face a storm of rage. I told you to stay away from this room. 2 days later, the CT results came back. Dr. Patel, Sophie's primary physician, called Julia to the conference room, his face grim but awed. You were right, he said. The scan showed a fungal mass aspergillosis in her left upper lobe. It was buried behind the pneumonia, in VY Cybele on standard x-rays. The bronchial wash confirmed it. Without that targeted test, we'd have missed it until it ruptured a vessel or spread. Julia's knees buckled. How did Max know? Dogs can smell volatile compounds, fungi, bacteria, cancers, Patel said. We're starting antifungal therapy now. She's stable, thanks to him. Hensley, standing nearby, crossed his arms. I've re-VY-EU'd the literature, he admitted, his tone clipped but lacking its usual bite. Canine olfaction is impressive. We're drafting a protocol to study this. But don't think I'm sold on dogs roaming my wards. Weeks later, Sophie went home, Max at her side for her first post-discharge VY sit. The hospital adopted the Canine Alert Initiative, a groundbreaking policy integrating therapy dog observations into diagnostics. Hensley even joined the research team, his skepticism EVOL-VY-ing into cautious curiosity. As Sophie hugged Max goodbye, whispering, "You saved me," Julia knew they'd rewritten the rules of healing one bark at a time.